What a way to start out the season for 16 teams. For the other 16, not so much. This is the Week 1 edition of Actions, Reactions, and Overreactions. A lot of what we learned from Week 1 is a lot of what we already knew. Let you know exactly what I mean. Let's start off with this first point that this may come as a surprise, may come as a shock to you, but to me, Tyreek Hill is still the best wide receiver in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, 7 catches on 12 targets with 130 receiving yards and a touchdown. One of those catches going for 80 yards. Jacksonville was in control the whole game, and then Travis Etienne Jr. fumbles it, gives Miami the ball back, and then Tyreek Hill catches a pass, does the rest, and it sparks Miami into victory. The New York Giants and the Carolina Panthers are still the worst teams in the NFL, but the Cincinnati Bengals are not that far ahead of them, at least not after Week 1, as Zach Taylor still can't get a W in Week 1. I, a football junkie, had a million screens going on at once, but I watched the entire Cincinnati game and I still can't really explain to you what the fuck is going on with Cincinnati. So, you know, that's on Coach Zach Taylor and that's on the coaching staff for not getting these players ready for live action. And the players have to take some accountability too. But Zach Taylor's record in the first 2 weeks of the season is unbelievably bad. And the game planning just doesn't seem to be it either. The AFC is too good to be starting your season in Week 3 every year. Another thing we already know is that the Saints are very good in Week 1. Boy, from who day to who dat in Week 1 is a major fucking difference. And as for Carolina, I know there's probably already going to be people that are saying Bryce Young shouldn't be a starting quarterback. And I tell you what, I'm starting to lean in that direction. The only reason I haven't is because I always say that we need to give guys time. But this is not a great start for Bryce. As for the Giants, yeah, in my division prediction video, one thing I cut out is how much I stressed how much you're going to miss Saquon Barkley. I touched on it a little bit in that video, but I went into greater length and I had to cut it out for time's sake. And yeah, the Giants look completely lost. The Minnesota Vikings, I don't think anyone expects us to be like a superb top 5, top 10 team. And they looked like it in Week 1. I'm going to technically call this an overreaction. It is Week 1, but if this happens a couple more weeks in a row, they are the worst. Which brings me to my next point. The offensive line in Atlanta is still bad. No matter what, even after all the acquisitions they've made, the offensive line is still a major problem. This is what they had. This is their issue last year. But I don't think the stats really show just how much that this D-line got to Kirk Cousins. Atlanta brings in a veteran, Kirk Cousins, who was playing his best football before the injury last season, and he threw 2 picks. 155 passing yards and did not look good in Week 1, and it looks like the same shit that was going on with Ritter's Falcons. My last point, the Chiefs are still the Kansas City Chiefs. They are still the best team in football, and it's their league, man. I think the Chargers are going to be better than other people think, but none of those teams in their division are ready to take the Chiefs out. They might go 6-0 in that division. If you're someone who really doesn't want to see them back in the Super Bowl, you got to hope Houston or maybe hope that Baltimore found some things out against them. But as of right now, it looks like it's up to one of those 2 teams to stop Kansas City from going back to another Super Bowl. All right, our next segment is dedicated to players and teams of the week. Let's get into it. And at first, Josh Allen was going to be my quarterback of the week, but now it is Baker Mayfield. I will give a shout out to Josh Allen, though. He had 4 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 2 passing. Baker had 4 passing touchdowns and a completion percentage of 80%. Baker also had the best quarterback rating of the week while throwing for the 4th most yards of the week. He was in control, felt no pressure the whole time. 24 of 30 is pretty awesome. RB1 of Week 1 goes to Saquon Barkley, who is now with the Eagles. He ranks 5th in total rushing yards of the week, but he is the only running back with more than 1 touchdown total, and not only that, but he had 3 touchdowns. But I've got 2 shout-outs here. Shout out to J.K. Dobbins. An average of 13.5 yards per carry. What? It only took him 10 rushes to get 135 rushing yards and a touchdown. My last one goes to Joe Mixon, as he was the top in rushing yards this week. 9 first downs and a rushing touchdown. After the game, he kind of made comments about Cincinnati, saying he wants to leave the team in the dust the same way they left him in the dust. To Joe Mixon, I'm sorry you feel that way about the organization, but I want you to know, as the record stands, the fans have always loved you, and I wish you the best. Wide receiver of the week goes to my boy from Michigan State, wide receiver Jaden Reed, 138 receiving yards on just 4 receptions. 3 of those 4 catches resulted in a first down or a touchdown. Just given those numbers, he would have already been wide receiver number 1, but he had to go and get a rushing touchdown as well. The amazing thing about that is that was the only rush of the day for him, and it was a 33-yard touchdown. But shout out to the guy that we mentioned already in Tyreek Hill. You are still the number 1 wide receiver, sir. Tight end of the week goes to Isaiah Likely, and he was very close to putting that game into overtime, but still 9 catches with 111 receiving yards and a touchdown. Very solid, very impressive against in Kansas City, who was a great defense last year, and I imagine they'll be good again. Defense and special teams of the week is a tough one. I'm gonna mention both of them then. First off, the New Orleans Saints, of course. This defense was everywhere on Bryce Young, much like last year, and each time that the Saints have played Bryce Young, they have sacked him 4 times every game. They also picked him off twice, recovered a fumble, and held Carolina to just 58 total rushing yards. And then I also want to mention the Dallas Cowboys defense and special teams. They pretty much embarrassed Cleveland from the jump. Special teams had a return for a touchdown in Turpin. They sacked Deshaun Watson twice. He threw a pick, and he had like 30 passing yards at halftime. That Dallas defense sacked Watson 6 times. Watson threw it 45 times and only ended up with 169 passing yards. Thursday Night Football was great. Friday Night Football was great. But what took the cake for me was Sunday Night Football. Matt Stafford against the Lions. The Lions winning in overtime. Now that's good football. I think Chris Collinsworth was right. If the Lions and the Rams played every single week, we would get a very entertaining football game every single week. You guys have really good football teams. I'm a huge Kyren Williams fan. Love Stafford, love Nakua, love Kupp, and the Lions have so many players that I love. And I also want to remind you guys that Monday night's stats and games are not taken into account. I did a preview for Thursday night in week 1, and it was very well received. So we're going to start breaking down the primetime games. So Monday night will get its own video from here on out. I got to give a big shout out to you too, dude. I appreciate you for watching this video. Make sure to like and comment and all that YouTube shit. But that's it for me, guys. You'll catch me in the next one.